Let's try no headphones. How are you guys today? All right, going old school. Welcome everybody to this week's Revive webinar. Thank you guys for joining. I see many of you are on time or early, which I'm proud of this crowd because we have very busy parents, and a lot of our folks who join us usually kind of sneak in right at the stroke of midnight. So thanks guys for coming here early. My name is Rich Brancaccio, and I'm the founder and CEO here at Revive Technologies, and I'm here to provide an introduction to somebody who I'm very fond of, and you guys are very lucky to have as a guest host today. We have with us Amy Patnode, and Amy is what our marketing specialist referred to as a triple threat, which sounded super cool, so I wanted to share that with you guys. Amy's a triple threat because Amy is a licensed school psychologist. She's also an assessment consultant at our partner company, MHS, who we partner with on a multitude of different things and whom we're very fond of. MHS is a world leader in test assessments for various psychoeducational assessments. Many of the great tests I used to use when I was a school psychologist came from MHS. So I was a huge fan and very lucky and fortunate that we're able to partner with them on so many endeavors. So Amy is an educational consultant there. And she's also a blogger and parent coach at Psyched to Parent. So if you have a few minutes, I highly recommend checking out her site, Psyched, P-S-Y-C-H-E-D, 2, like number 2, parent.com. So Amy's here today to provide to you guys a very cool training on PPP, not the Paycheck Protection Program that everyone's talking about in the media, but positive pandemic parenting. And Amy has a really great presentation. So we're very lucky to have her. We appreciate her joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy. I wish you guys the best. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Rich. Welcome, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I am thrilled to be here with you this afternoon to be talking about positive pandemic parenting and sharing different tips, tricks, and resources to help with regards to managing, as I like to say at my house, all of the things, right? So as we get into this presentation, we're going to be talking about several different things. And I will tell you, as a mom of 2 small children, I am not the best multitasker. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera for just a moment, for just a little bit. Don't worry, I'll pop on in a little shortly. And I'm going to make sure I can get this. Oh, there we go. We're cooking with gas. Get the slides to cycle through. So there's a couple things I want to just make sure I point out to you as we get started. This is set up to be an hour-and-a-half long webinar. However, if you need to come and go, that's totally fine. One of the things that was sent out with the webinar was a PDF of this positive pandemic action plan. I actually will show you right now. I actually have mine printed off. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you have it printed off, that's awesome. We're actually going to be using this and going through this so we have like some action items, an actual plan by the time this is over with. If you don't have the action plan, that is totally fine. It really is a pretty looking document that you can use and access. But if you have, just grab a notepad and a pen or crayons or whatever you like to use to take some notes, you can go ahead and grab those as well for this. So as Rich did, he just did a little introduction, which I'm super appreciative of. There's several different things we're going to be talking about today. This is just some information about Revive, which is pretty cool. Revive is a really awesome resource in the sense that it's helpful with regards to helping manage children and their attention, and you can get a lot of really good data to make sure that they're being successful, because the more actively engaged a child is at school with their learning, the better off their long-term outcomes are. So basically meaning that if a child is spending, 95% of their time in school being actively engaged, which means they're actually attending to the work, they're not being distracted, can be really helpful for them when you think about things like graduation rates, decreasing likelihood of being retained, those sorts of things. It's really helpful, and it's nice to have those pieces of data. I'm going to apologize because you could probably hear my dogs barking in the background. As a working mom, I'm sure y'all can probably appreciate this, that I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. This is nap time in my house, or quiet time with a 5-year-old. And of course, my partner and I have double booked ourselves. So my husband is on a work call right now, negotiating a contract while I am doing this webinar. So unfortunately the dogs are outside. So I apologize. I wish I had a cute picture to show you. They're running amok like crazy little animals that they are. So for those of you, in case you don't have it, there's a really cool Revive student planner that you can download at the Revive website, which I highly suggest checking out. I downloaded it yesterday just to check it out. and using it there. So I have a question that just popped in saying, I don't see the PDF to download. I don't see it on the email link that was sent out. Maybe Morgan, if you could help with that. I don't know if there's a way to post it on the chat, but that would be really great to share. I'm going to let Morgan handle that for us. All righty. Okay, so here is, we're going to go ahead and kind of start to get into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about today. I'm really passionate about this topic. As Rich said, I am a licensed school psychologist. Before going into school psychology, I was also a special education teacher and a kindergarten teacher. I really am an educator at heart, and I love working with children, especially when they drive you up the walls. I like to work with kids, and I still continue to work with children and families. I work full-time for Multi-Health Systems, as Rich said, as an assessment consultant, but I also do coaching and therapy, as I like to say in my quote, free time, which doesn't exist now because of COVID-19, but that's okay. You know, we just all kind of adapt and move forward with it, right? So really the next bit of this webinar is all about kind of coming up with some resources, tips, and tricks that I can share with you that are going to be helpful with regards to managing everything. So there's a couple of assumptions that I'm making right now. I'm making the assumption that you're parents or you work with children. I'm also making the assumption that you're probably trying to navigate working from home, and that I'm also making the assumption that you're looking for some ideas or some resources to help you. So hopefully I'll be able to cover those things and get through those things. As Rich said, I do work for MHS. Revive and MHF have a partnership, and we work closely together. So that's also how I used to tell people that's how I get paid. That's how I pay for my kids to go to preschool. Unfortunately, those are not options right now. They're all closed, but something worth knowing. In addition to that, I'm also a blogger. So I know Rich shared with y'all, my website is called Psych to Parent. I encourage you to check it out. Most of the people know me professionally as my job as an assessment consultant, being a school psychologist. A lot of people don't realize I'm actually a mom of 2 small children. These are my kids from just a little while ago. They're a little bit bigger now, but I really kind of started this because I was looking for a way to take something I'm really passionate about and have a bigger impact with the children and families that I work with, and just in general, larger than the Tampa Bay community that I serve. And one of the things that I believe as a professional, as a school psychologist, and as a parent coach is that all parents, those who work with children, we all love our kids and, or students if we're teachers that we work with, but sometimes it can be really hard and really frustrating. So my big belief that I work on with families is that when we take small steps that have a big impact. And my goal is to help foster, build, develop, strengthen the parent-child relationship, because when you have a solid relationship with your child, that's going to lay that foundation for success later on in life. Especially when we think about what's going on currently with, safer at home orders, COVID-19, school closures, working from home as parents, like those are a lot of major changes. And like more than ever now, our kids are looking to us for support, help, guides, like how do I respond? And as parents, we can do that. The other thing too, I often tell people is that I share advice, guidance, and tips. And it's not something that, I just thought of or I saw it on Facebook. It's really, I like to use research to inform decision-making. What I mean by that is I take research from the fields of education, psychology, and pediatrics, and I analyze it. I look for trends in the data, and then I share that information in a way that's digestible for, parents to use and implement in place. Okay, so that's my information. I'd love for you to check me out. There's and connect with me. I always try and share stuff online to just, encourage and support families and parents and children. So there's several different objectives that we have for this afternoon that we're going to be talking about. And the 3 real things we're going to look at is we're going to look at the things that cause us stress, that influence our parenting practices, especially right now in the midst of what's going on. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create this positive pandemic parenting action plan. And this plan really is designed, and the hope is to help us hold ourselves accountable, right? So like coming up with ideas, strategies, which you'll hear about in the webinar, but then also being able to have something that you can actually use as a guide to take home with you, or take home and use at home for your kiddos. The third piece is I'll be sharing all sorts of tips with you. So these include tips with like working from home, parenting practices, and just managing stress and helping to decrease the likelihood of burnout. Okay. So I know there's another question here with regards to the PDF to download and print that should have been emailed to you when you got the invitation to join this webinar. So I would suggest checking your email. All right. You know, it's really funny. I'm such a kid. I see all these flashing buttons. I get so excited. So let's go ahead and dive into the first topic, which is really about parenting during a pandemic. And one of the things I always like to do is this mental health check. When I worked in the schools, I was known as being a pretty positive person. And in fact, when I was working in the schools with kids and students, I was known as positive Pat Node. However, it's not easy having this optimistic attitude all of the time. And honestly, it's really not healthy either. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to feel stressed out. I think that's all very normal right now with what's going on. You're allowed to have those feelings, but it's what we do with our feelings that really shines a light on how we're coping with things. So if we are using coping mechanisms like exercising or maybe practicing mindfulness, that can be really beneficial. But there are other things that can be done that may not be as helpful for our mental health or even for our families, whether it's using substances or maybe overeating or undereating, things of that nature. So like just take a moment right now and just think about this. How are you feeling with everything that's going on when you think about your kids? And if you want to type it into the chat box, there's that little chat. I'd love to hear some of the things that with regards to how you're feeling. So if you have any things that you would like to share, you can type them in there. Exhausted, I get it, me too. I'm so exhausted. What else? How else do you feel? Overwhelmed and tired. Me too. Overwhelmed. Stressed. Yes. Oh, preach, girlfriend. Worry about the academics. I understand that. Stretched, too thin, neglectful, frustrated, nervous, to calm the pendulum, frustrated, worried about kids being behind. Someone's a teacher, stress. So there's definitely a lot of emotions I'm seeing pop in. If you want to keep typing them in, I'd love to see what else you have to share in the comments. And I want to tell you right now, I want to give you permission. I want to give you permission to have those feelings. I want to give you permission to know your limits. But I also want to give you permission to be the great parent that you are. You have the ability to be a great parent. And I promise you this. It's not about the academics. Oh my, I have to laugh. Someone said, my kids do not want to attend virtual anymore. Mine don't either. I want to just give you permission though. This is why, like as the school psychologist and as a parent coach, one of the things I really hang my hat on is the fact that we need to protect the parent-child relationship and do what we can to foster that and build it. And so I'm hopeful that this webinar will help you with that, because that's the most important thing. I promise you, we're going to look back on COVID-19 and be like, oh my gosh, look at all these things that we did. Here's the thing though, our kids, they're going to look back on COVID-19, depending on how old they are. They might have stronger memories than others. But the thing that they're definitely going to remember is how their parents made them feel. And so we have some things that we can do to protect ourselves as well as protect our kids. So I just want to say, take a moment right now and express some gratitude, because I think it can be really hard to express yourselves and to share how you're feeling. And it's okay. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me this afternoon. So there's several common stressors that I know parents are experiencing right now. Some of them are listed here. So there are some of the things that come to mind when I think about this include how there are these several stressors that I would argue many working parents are experiencing right now. So first, there's the stress of taking care of our children and family obligations. This includes daily activities, distance learning, meal times. Y'all, does anyone feel like their family eats all the time? Like I feel like I do so much cooking, cleaning, and laundry right now. It's just kind of ridiculous, right? I never realized how much food my family eats or how many loads of laundry I've done until COVID-19. Another common stressor that people experience, if you are still working and lucky enough to have a job, that's really great, but there's this pressure with work, right? I think about being a school psychologist or a teacher or other avenues with which we're working where you have deadlines and meetings and like a bazillion Zoom meetings, and you are trying to do distance learning with your children and stuff like that, which is very stressful. But then you also have things like you're trying to, you know, also manage that with the requirements that school has for your kids, right? So there's a lot of them. There's that financial pressure. You know, perhaps one of the caretakers in your home or even yourself may have been furloughed, laid off, or you're working a reduced schedule. I know that's a big concern right now with regards to employment. And then at the bottom of this really is like your personal needs. Like oftentimes those go by the wayside with, you know, say for at home, it's more challenging to get out of the house and go to the gym or meet a friend for coffee or whatever it is that recharges your battery. I jokingly said to my husband for Mother's Day, it's like, you know what I really want for Mother's Day? I really just want to go to Target by myself. This is like so, you know, so basic, I guess, of me, but like I wanted to go to Target by myself for like an hour and a half and just walk the aisles and drink a coffee. I didn't do it because we're sheltering at home and we're intentionally doing that for personal reasons, but those personal needs that we have of making sure that, you know, doing things that make us feel recharged can be really, really hard. The last thing on this list is just making sure that the family basic needs are met. So is there enough food? You know, are people concerned about being evicted from their apartment? Are you worried about paying for a prescription for a loved one that they need, but you can't afford? And I just think to myself, you know, that's a lot of weight on a parent's shoulders and a family's shoulders. And you're trying to be strong amidst everything that's going on. So in thinking about those stressors, we kind of talked about how we're feeling. I know that it's a lot and sounds like there's a lot of worries. I know I'm not alone in having those worries. We're going to go ahead and pull out that positive pandemic action plan right now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on. I think it's on now. I just like smile. Okay, so I'm pulling out my action plan right now. And what I want you to do, and I'm going to see if I can flash it on the screen too, is there's 3 questions. So this is on the first page of your positive pandemic parenting plan, action plan. And I want you to think about this. There are 3 questions. What are my needs? What does my family need from me? And what are my work responsibilities? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I'm going to encourage you just to think. I'm going to set my timer. You can tell I used to be a teacher. And I want you to think about that. Just write them down. What are my needs? What are the things that I really need? What does my family need? And what are my work responsibilities? Things that I have to get done for work. So I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to kind of jot some ideas down here for these 3 questions. You have about 30 seconds. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All righty. Okay. So I went ahead and started jotting down some of my ideas, what I need to do for myself, or just like a needs assessment for myself, my family, and my work responsibilities. I encourage you to think about these things, and if you need to, come back to it later on, perhaps after the webinar, about those needs. It's even something worth sharing with others, other parents or partners, about what their needs are. Or even for older children, you might even ask your kids, instead of just thinking, what does my family need from me? Maybe perhaps asking your kids, what do you need from me? What do you need from mom right now? What do you need from dad? What do you need from Nana or grandpa? Okay. All righty, awesome. So the next thing I'm going to share with you too is on the next page in your needs, in your action plan, is their strategy. So One of the things I've learned, I've worked in education for, it's like really embarrassing. It's like 15 years almost now, which is like, I started when I was super young. I was like 21 when I started teaching. It's like a long time ago. Anyway, so I've learned that the more engaging and active I can make a webinar with regards to having you do some work, being actively engaged, like I talked about earlier, the better. So there's a page, the next page, where you're gonna be able to take some notes. So I'm gonna be sharing several ideas for strategies for managing stress, overwhelm, and burnout. We're gonna be talking about that next, and I'm gonna encourage you to write down your ideas here as we talk through that. Okay, let's see. Perfect, okay. All right, strategies to ease your stressors. So let's face it, when I talk about things like this, I'm thinking about feelings of stress, overwhelm, and burnout. I really think of it as a continuum, right? So there's, on the one side, I feel like there's stressors, and then as it might perhaps become more challenging, we start to feel overwhelmed, and then on the other side of that would be burnout. So it's this continuum. And the more, I call them precautions or things that we can do now to take care of ourselves, the better. So here are some of the strategies that help with easing feelings of stress. So the first one that we're going to really talk about here has to do with communication. So when it comes to feeling stress, communication is key. During this time, it is important to stay informed of what's going on in the world and with our families. However, it is not healthy to be glued to the TV, a tablet, or your phone all hours of the day, right? You want to make sure you're identifying a few trusted resources to ensure that you get accurate information and setting time limits with that. And FYI, social media, while you can get all kinds of fun information, it's not typically a good source of information with regards to news. So one of the things I will share with you as a parent, I've really had to work on is monitoring how much I am on my phone. I'm already on a computer for several hours a day, working with my children, watching me work, and, you know, managing all those pieces. And I found myself, as a result of this, everything that's going on, being more, you know, checking my phone more, reading different articles, scrolling social media. And I've really had to be intentional with time. So I would encourage you with this piece is, you know, using trusted news outlets, but also giving yourself like a specific amount of time to do it. Because spending 3 or 4 hours a day on your device or consuming information on the news is not necessarily always very helpful. Another piece here with communication is that you want to make sure you spend time talking to your family about COVID-19 and what's going on. So a big thing to remember here is that children may have many of the same fears that we have. They're going to be worried. They're going to feel anxious. And they're going to see and hear a lot of what we hear because we're all like in, you know, much closer quarters than we typically are with going on. So one of the things I oftentimes will see with kids, and I've heard a lot about just in my practice here in Tampa, is that parents are experiencing a lot of clinginess. They don't want to, kids don't want to be away from their parents. There's also a lot more tantruming or acting out where kids have these awesome meltdowns. And a lot of time that with kids, especially when we talk about younger kids. So I'm thinking about kids between the ages of, you know, early, like preschool age, you know, starting at age 2, all the way up to elementary school. I'm working with a family right now with a child who's in 5th grade who tantrums still, who have tantrums. And one of the things that we're working on, or I work on with families, is the fact that kids oftentimes don't have the verbiage or the words to express themselves. So if you don't have the words to express yourself, you're going to use your behavior. And oftentimes what happens with kids is when they get so frustrated, their behavior kind of winds up and then they react. And that's where we have these temper tantrums. And so one of the things here, again, I think is so important is a lot of times attention is really reinforcing for kids, and getting attention, whether it's positive attention for doing something good or negative attention for doing something bad or inappropriate, I hate to use the word bad, it makes a difference. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of those things, because a lot of times kids are just not sure what the heck is going on and they need some sort of reassurance. In addition to that, you know, I know I'm in Florida, school's starting to wrap up for the school year, but like, you know, it's important also to communicate with teachers, school personnel, you know, about what's going on, and just make sure you're up to date with what's happening. Now, the next one, I feel like I talk about it and I almost feel like it's kind of cliche, is this word self-care. but it's so important, right? So self-care is so important, and we're going to see more about this in the webinar, a little bit later in the webinar, but right now we are really talking about the ways that we can ease the stressors that we're facing in our daily lives. So things like connecting with others. So maybe you schedule a Zoom call with your friends, you FaceTime your parents, maybe you try House Party, it's a fun app with your friends. Anything like email, texting, and phone calls are all great ways to connect with others. The other thing here I think that's really important is show a little kindness towards yourself. I've said this, I don't like in coaching, counseling that I do, COVID-19, this is not business as usual. This is, hey, we're trying to survive. We're trying to keep it together, so to speak. And so I'm a big fan right now of saying, what can I do to help myself so that I can take care of myself as a parent so that I'm able to take care of my children? So one of the things that I'm always impressed by is that if we don't have a way to take care of ourselves, if we're not doing something for ourselves every day, and it can be as small as like 10 or 15 minutes here or there, it's just exhausting. It like makes you more irritable, like you feel more stressed, and you have a shorter attention span. And so it's just really hard, I think, to do our jobs as parents if we're not taking care of ourselves. The other piece here when it comes to stressors that's really important to know is that reassuring your child, whoopsies, what did I click on? All these funny buttons that pop up on my screen, sorry about that, guys, is to reassure your child. So our children, as I said earlier, they pick up on the energy that we put out into the world. This is why it's so important, especially right now, to provide a supportive, calm, empathetic, and listening ear to our children. This helps them feel securely attached to us as parents, as well as other important adult figures in their lives. So one of the things that I would argue, makes it easier as a parent and as a coach is if I'm taking care of myself, I'm better able to manage the level of frustration I get with my children. So for example, like I shared, my kids are 2 and 5 years old. One of the battles that we have in our house, like many parents, is picking up toys. Well, when I have not exercised or I have not had like 20 minutes of alone time for myself in the day to kind of recharge, my fuse is much shorter. So I'm able to be a more calm, supportive, engaging parent when I've taken some of those self-care strategies and put them in place, which then helps my children feel securely attached to me. One of the things that's really important right now, and you probably will see with your own kids if you just kind of reflect back on this, is that your kids are probably like in more contact with you than it was pre-COVID-19. What I mean by that is you might see them asking questions for reassurance. Maybe they want a hug, maybe they want to snuggle, maybe they want you to play with them. Those are all really good things, all important things that I would encourage you to make time for with your family and your kids. You know, as adults, we can say to our partners or to a trusted friend, you know, I'm really freaking frustrated right now. I just need to vent. And you can do that. For a child, you know, whether they're in elementary school or even middle school, they're not going to say, I'm frustrated. They might say they're frustrated if they're truly gifted or self-aware of their feelings. But oftentimes they're going to say, hey, mom, will you come do a craft project with me? Can you read me a book? Will you watch me play this video game? And if you have those moments or opportunities to engage like that with your child, I would highly recommend it. Because like, again, they're not going to say the things that we say as adults. They're going to say things differently to us as children. And the big thing here too, I want to share is that attention and reinforcement goes a long way. And all of it is so important for our kids, especially right now. So we've talked about stressors and how stressors impact us. And we're going to kind of start thinking about other things that also happen to us, especially with what's going on with COVID-19. So in thinking about our feelings, especially during times of rapid change like this, we are more often than not going to feel like we've hit our limits. Anybody else, like you can type it into the chat. I'd love to know, anybody else feel like they've hit their limit? Because I've had those days where I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do much more. I need to tap out. Mommy needs like a staycation or something. And I think Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one, y'all. Thank you. So I think the thing here is like when we've been facing stressors in our life, we're trying to use different coping mechanisms to combat them. And sometimes you need to add other tools to your toolkit other than what we just talked about. And these are some of the strategies that'll help. Oh, you hit your, I know, hit your wall last week. Same here, girlfriend. And these are some of the things that are going to help. Now, one of the things I say to some of my clients that I work with is there are these moments of misery, right? But then there's pockets of joy. And so one of the things I work on when I work with families and coaching is I help them with finding those pockets of joy, being grateful, expressing gratitude for those things that happen in our life every day. And then those moments of misery when you're like hitting your limit, like, okay, how am I going to handle this? And so I'm going to tell you just in the next couple of slides about the paper tiger. I just love this analogy. I'll tell you in just a minute. I know I'm glad to know I'm not the only one who's hit a wall. Same here. It's hard, but you know, the fact that you're here, you're participating, you're looking at it for ideas. I mean, that tells me you're good parents who want the best for your children, want the best for your family. And you know what? That's awesome. That's awesome. I can tell you right now without ever meeting you, I don't think I'll ever meet you in person. I would happily invite you to hang out with me in Tampa. Thank you. Thank you for caring, and thank you for valuing what you do as a parent, because that's really important. Now, when it comes to these feelings of overwhelm, here's a couple of strategies. Again, you can put these also on your positive pandemic parenting action plan. So the first thing is sometimes it's just as simple as a mindset shift. When it comes to large tasks, like how you're going to get something done during the day, it's always helpful to break things down into smaller tasks that you can do one at a time. Often the stress we feel has more to do with how we think of the different hurdles in our path rather than some real danger. You can ask yourself, how much influence am I allowing a specific stressor to have in my life? And if things feel like they are too much to handle, you can reach out to others for support. So I know someone made a comment here about having a teenager with ADHD. I think shared something also about distance learning or Zoom calls. You know, if you've hit your limit and those are things that you're struggling with, I have a 5-year-old who's in kindergarten. He reached a limit with that maybe a month ago. And you know what? I chose not to fight with him anymore about it. I was like, that's you, buddy. If you don't want to do it, mommy's not going to fight you on it, but we are going to do some academics. So we spent a little bit of time working on the academics, but it's a set amount of time. And then the rest of it, I let it go. So it's also really helpful when it comes to our perspective, when it comes to feeling overwhelmed, to put things in perspective. So there's a couple of questions I always like to ask here with regards to putting things in perspective. And it comes from this analogy of, is it a real tiger or is it a paper tiger? And what I mean by this is this. Back in the day, like during prehistoric times, this was a legitimate concern that a caveman or a woman would ask himself or herself. Perhaps they were more worried though about like a saber-toothed tiger, right? When we feel overwhelmed, we revert to the flight, fight, or freeze mode of thinking. When you feel like you are in survival mode, most of the time you aren't thinking clearly. By asking ourselves this question, we are reframing our thoughts to look at things differently and whether or not the situation actually puts us in immediate danger. Okay, so here's the thing to take away with this. You know, you're going to ask yourself, is it a real paper? Is it a real tiger or is it a paper tiger? And if you feel yourself going into flight, I can't say it. I'm so sorry, guys. It's flight, fight, or freeze. Asking yourself this question gives you that moment to pause and help you kind of bring yourself back together. Now, I will tell you this. In some instances, you could be in immediate danger. I think about those families that are experiencing domestic abuse, child abuse or neglect, or maybe even homelessness. These are real dangers, and we need to support individuals getting into immediate help if they need it. So that's something to think about. However, like again, putting things in perspective, when my 5-year-old has a temper tantrum, I'm not saying if, it's when, because it happens, they're kids. When he has a temper tantrum, because I took the iPad away and I'm limiting screen time, I'm not in real danger. I'm going to come up with a plan to help manage that. Oh, and it's awesome. I have a great plan for that I use with my kids. I'll tell you my secret. So one of the things I talked about earlier is that I believe in using a lot of attention and reinforcement with kids. And as a result of COVID-19 and being home, we have absolutely increased the amount of screen time that we watch in our house. And it used to be a really big struggle I would have with my child to give me the tablet. I mean, he's watching a tablet right now, and he's probably going to be on a tablet for the next 2 hours. Well, mom finishes work and dad finishes work. However, I've learned that there's other things I can use to reinforce him, and he is highly reinforced for certain behaviors. So what I mean when I say reinforce, I'm such a psych dork, is I'm trying to do things to shape his behavior, which means I'm trying to change his behavior so that he wants something and he's more likely to do it. So one of the things that we have taught our 5-year-old that works well, I think you can use it with older children as well. You might pick a different reinforcer as candy. Now, hopefully there's no dentist or dental hygienist on the call. And if there are, or pediatricians, I'm sorry, hopefully this doesn't sound awful, but to you from a health perspective. But one of the things we've done with tablets is I will tell our son, it's going away in 8 minutes when this show is over. If you bring me the tablet all by yourself and we put it on the charger, you get 2 candies. And I go to the grocery store and I buy a big bag of good candy. And what I mean by good candy is 1 week we had Reese's peanut butter cups. This week it's Milky Ways, but they're the little quarter-sized candies, and he gets 2 of them. Tell you what, all I have to do is tell him, hey, you have 8 minutes and you put it away and it works. So it's picking those things in your life that you say, hey, this is what I'm willing to fight with. These are the things, not fight with, but these are the things I'm willing to work on. And you kind of let everything else go away. So that, I apologize, that's totally a little bit of a tangent, going off topic a little bit on a tangent about putting things in perspective. And it's great if you have high expectations. I think we should all have high expectations for our kids. The second question here I asked when it comes to putting things in perspective is asking yourself, how will I feel about this problem tomorrow, next week, or even next year? Now, this is a really good question to remind ourselves that to really put things in a perspective. Oftentimes when we are in the heat of the moment with stuff, things might seem worse, more challenging, more frustrating, fill in the blank with your favorite word. But then when we stop and think about how we'd feel about it in the future, it might change. And then the last question here is this stressor permanent? And oftentimes the stressors we experience, they're not always permanent. I mean, some things could be, and it's how are we going to manage those feelings? The next thing you can do when it comes to feelings of overwhelm is give yourself a safe space to express yourself and your feelings. There are several different articles that support the use of writing or journaling to help with feelings of stress and overwhelm. And some of the ways that writing helps include letting go of controlling emotions, altering memories of stressful events. Writing isn't something that you need to do every day. However, it can be one of those tools in your toolkit that can help when you're feeling overwhelmed. The next one is giving back. Giving back boosts our well-being, and it feels good to help others when they need support. Right now, this might look like picking up a few groceries for a neighbor, displaying artwork in a window to support others, or just donating to charities in need. And then it comes back to this, is practice what you preach. Our children watch our behavior more than they listen to what we say. Perhaps you have a child in high school that is engaging in distance learning and struggling with the concept of calculus. I wouldn't be surprised to hear him or her say something like, oh, this stings. I don't get it. I can't do my schoolwork today. As a parent and someone who works with kids, we can help change that dialogue that we have with ourselves. So in response to a child who has said something like that, you could say, I appreciate that you're having a hard time with your calculus work. I know that you can do it. Let's work on it together. It's so important to acknowledge the feelings that others have and offer support. In addition to this, you can model those same things with your own behavior. Have you heard of the power? You're say worse. I love it. Y'all are great. I like this group working with parents. Y'all are awesome. Have you heard the power of the word yet? Okay, so you can model using yet, and that's Y-E-T, with your own limiting beliefs. So for example, instead of saying, I can't figure out how to solve this problem, you can flip the switch and say, I can't figure out how to solve this problem yet, but I bet I can. As adults, when we take control of the stressors in our lives, we are able to change what's going on to model the behavior and coping strategies for our children. This helps with our resiliency, and it helps with theirs too. Anybody love to travel? I love travel. I love to fly. That's probably one of my favorite, that's my favorite thing to do. I don't have a fancy house. I don't drive fancy cars, but I love to travel and I just explore. So one of the things I think about, probably, Amy, why are you talking about traveling? We're supposed to be talking about burnout. Well, to me, there's a lot of overlap or an analogy when I think about parental burnout and traveling. So we've talked about stress and stressors, as well as some strategies to help with those feelings of overwhelm. And like I shared earlier, to me, this is a range that we can experience. It's a continuum. And when it comes to supporting families and like how we do things, we can really help by preventing burnout. So by preventing burnout, this helps protect the parent-child relationship, as well as the relationships that are formed in the educational setting with students and families. And when we're able to prevent burnout, that's just is really helpful all the way around. So like I was saying earlier, when I think about burnout, it's kind of like getting ready for a family trip on the airplane. As working parents, we have this innate instinct to put the needs of our children above our own. Now, as someone with young children, I can tell you from personal experience that the first family members in my family that are packed for a big trip are my children. And guess who is the last person? That would be me. I'm the one who is like scrambling at midnight to finish laundry, stuff it in a suitcase, don't know what I packed. Did I pack a sweater? Did I pack my, I don't know, my socks? Who knows? And we have a flight at 6 a.m. the next morning. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? They're doing everything else for their families and they're like, wait, what about me? Well, there can be instances where we put the needs of others before our own. However, when it comes to the changing times that we are in right now, it is extremely important to take care of our own needs first. When we are experiencing a crisis like COVID-19, our normal systems have been turned upside down. It's kind of like going to the airport with all your luggage ready to go. Everyone is so excited for the upcoming trip, but then there's some sort of change to the itinerary. In moments like these, our children look to us for guidance, reassurance, and stability. To be able to offer these to them, we need to be able to have our own feelings and stressors under control. Y'all, I want to make sure you hear this really clearly. You have permission to put your needs and practice self-care for yourself. You have permission to put that above the needs of your children right now, of your spouses, of your families. I'm not saying we do it all the time, but this is not business as usual. So if your version of self-care or what you need for yourself is to read the latest book from Brene Brown, that's what I'm reading right now, or to go for a walk, or to watch something mindless on television so you can feel like you have that chance to decompress, I'm encouraging you to do those things. I'm not saying that this is what is going to happen when life goes back to normal, although who knows what the new normal will look like, but I'm telling you, when you take care of yourself, you're taking care of your family. So it's the point here with this analogy is that when you go on the airplane, one of the things that they do on the plane before the plane takes off is the attendant goes through the pre-flight safety check. They always tell you to help yourself putting on your mask before helping those next to you, including children. That's kind of like self-care. When we take care of ourselves, we're better able to take care of those around us. When it comes to burnout, we have to stop and think about our own personal experiences and what they bring to the table. Those who have experienced a tragedy before, have limited resources, or lack social supports may be more vulnerable to burnout than others. So when we take care of these things with regards to burnout, we are better equipped to help our kids, better equipped to when our kids are having a tantrum or they're mouthing off because they're high schoolers and they don't want to do their distance learning assignments. It's giving us that moment to pause, go through that exercise like with a paper tiger. The question, is it a real tiger or a paper tiger? And just put things in perspective. So this is that word I was talking about earlier. I feel like I see it everywhere. It's the self-care. It's that buzzword. So let's break it down. And really, what does self-care look like? So self-care is more than just a bubble bath, meeting a friend for coffee, or going to a yoga class. According to a publication from the National Association of School Psychologists. Again, this is the research dork in me looking for research. This is from one of the national organizations that I'm a member of for school psychologists. Self-care is multidimensional, like each of you, and that means that you need to be able to check each of these boxes in order to mitigate those feelings of stress, overwhelm, and burnout. All parents need to consider the following suggestions to prevent burnout. The first one is the physical self-care. So this has to do with things like maintaining a healthy eating habit, drinking plenty of water, limiting the use of alcohol or other substances, and getting adequate sleep. Another piece here looks at that emotional self-care. So this has to do with knowing your limitations, recognizing that your reactions are normal and occur frequently among other caregivers. You're not alone. I feel like the more I'm on different social media platforms, the more I hear from parents who share how frustrated they are, how overwhelmed they feel, how stressed they feel. So knowing you're not alone helps. Here's the thing though, if you find yourself having a really hard time, there are people and resources that you can use to help get support, some professional support. I encourage people to check those out if that's something that's needed. The third piece here is that social care and connection. That has to do with maintaining normal daily routines, connecting with trusted friends or family, connecting with systems such as faith or school communities, and then just having those additional supports in place so you know you're not alone. Fourth, you want to make sure you have those adequate resources. This includes being able to acknowledge that you and your family may need extra help, and that's okay. And finding other resources within your community to help meet those needs. And then the fifth one really has to do with like procedural care and like looking at how we are responding to different crises that we experience. You know, this might be more aligned for mental health professionals or educators who are on the front lines and looking at those procedures that are in place. So I want to share with you a couple of things that I think are really cool that I've found that are really helpful. So one of the things that we know when it comes to practicing self-care is that meditation and practicing gratitude is one way with which to do it. There's two different ones that I personally use that I'm a big fan of. The first one is Calm. Calm has all sorts of different apps and meditations that you can do. I always like to disclose I'm not an affiliate for Calm. I don't get anything for recommending Calm to people. I just think it's a good resource because you can download it on your smartphone. They have quick meditations to help with managing stress, sleeping better, mindfulness, and that's really helpful. Another one like that that's also really helpful is Headspace. It's pretty cool because you can use Headspace to also like listen to different meditations. They're really short. Something that's cool too, I think, about Headspace is that it was created by somebody who's a former monk. And something I found when I was doing some research on Headspace last week for this presentation is that they're offering individuals who've been unemployed a free year of access to Headspace. So that's kind of cool. So I think you can use both of these apps. They're on the App Store. They either have trials or they have a free version you can use. There's also paid versions. I don't know the price. I don't know the pricing off the top of my head, but they are really nice just from a perspective of practicing gratitude. And I really, really like that. The other thing, this is totally a shameless plug on my part, but I couldn't help but share it, is this. I have a free practicing daily gratitude guide on my website. So it's On Site to Parent. This is the link that you could access. And it's basically a guide for tracking things that you're grateful for. So I have found from doing research and personal practice, I feel like there's somebody who says you do me research that turns into we research. So you're looking, as an individual, I was looking for ways to help with managing stress in my own life. And one of the things I realized was that managing those feelings of stress, it was really happy to practice daily gratitude. So I created this daily gratitude tracker that you can access, again, for free. It's on my site. And really what you want to do is you just want to track 3 to 5 different things each day that you're grateful for. And they can be really small. For example, if I were to track 3 things I'm grateful for right now, one thing I would say is I'm grateful for each and every one of you of showing up and participating in this webinar with me today. I want to express gratitude for that. Another thing I would express gratitude for is my husband. We ran out of milk for coffee, and I'm a huge coffee drinker. My husband went out first thing this morning to go get milk so I could have milk in my coffee. That's something I would express gratitude for. And then probably a third thing I would express gratitude for right now is the fact that my children and I were able to do some really fun craft projects this morning with pipe, it's a huge, AKA make a big mess, but with pipe cleaners and construction paper, with imaginative play, but it was fun to engage in imaginative play with them doing craft projects. So those would be 3 things that I could easily write down to track. The nice thing with tracking it is then you writing it down is then you're able to actually go back and review it later, which is kind of cool. So we've talked about a bunch of different things so far, and I want to make sure we have a little bit more to talk about. We're going to kind of switch gears and start talking about working from home. But I'm just curious, if you don't mind sharing and typing into the chat, I would love to know, what are some things that you do for yourself? What recharge your batteries? What are ways that you practice self-care right now? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Type something in the chat to share maybe with the group, if that's okay, if you're comfortable with that, of how are you practicing self-care? The nice thing too with doing this is that then it's like the whole idea of throwing out an idea and getting ideas from the group. And it's cool to be able to support others this way. So we have someone who said walking my dog, Zoom dinner dates with friends. Oh, I love that. A run every morning. I've been playing Minecraft. Someone said that. Yoga, running, Peloton community. Oh my gosh, I'm on the Peloton. I love my bike. That's my saving grace right now. Insight timer. Oh, I haven't tried the insight timer. Zoom game night with friends, walking, color by number. Oh, I love to color. Get up early to walk, walking the woods, play with kids and laugh. That's so important. Reading, word searches, coloring. There's a couple house party games. Oh, I love house party. It's so much fun. So just as an FYI, in the positive parenting pandemic action plan, it's 10 pages long, but the last couple of pages are actually coloring sheets I created. So there's some coloring sheets within their house party games, ukulele lessons. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So cool. What else? Any other ideas to share? Let's see. I woke up very early, enjoy my coffee alone, quiet around the house. Oh my gosh, I love that. I could do that. Yoga, running, playing Minecraft with my husband after the kids have gone to bed. I think that's awesome. It's nice to do something with your partner. Prayer. Absolutely, prayer can be really helpful. Get up to read or watch your shows before everyone gets afternoons in the hammock listening to music. Oh, I love it. I love to listen to music. Awesome. I'm going to give you 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Somebody said Zumba. Awesome. I love it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those ideas. There's some really great ideas on here that people have shared. That's really cool. I can absolutely show the tiger slide later. Absolutely. All righty. Okay, so we're going to switch gears. Again, I'm going to pull out where's my handout? Okay, I'll turn my camera on again. You guys can see me. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my action plan again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip from page, that's the first one, second one. We've been taking strategy ideas. So this is where we had our strategies for stress, overwhelm, and burnout, the one for self-care. And now what we're going to do is there's another space where we're going to be on the next page where you're going to be able to write some ideas down for strategies for working from home. And then there's also some parenting quick tips. So we're going to kind of go through these next 2 sections. And if it's okay with the team, like I'm happy to stay on and answer questions. So if you have specific parenting questions you'd like some insight on, we can do that as well, depending on how we go through the next piece of it. Okay, so here we go. All right, so I showed you that, perfect. Okay, so I have been working from home for almost 5 years now. So this is my role working from home as an assessment consultant for MHS who partners with Revive. So for me, this is really the easy part. However, when you add fun variables in the equation, like having my partner working from home remotely, distance learning for my children, and no help with childcare or household responsibilities, man, this is tough, right? However, there are two major keys that have made it manageable, more manageable than I think feeling like I'm going to pull my hair out. And the first one is having an open line of communication has been critical to our survival during this period of time. Next would be having a plan and a schedule. That helps tremendously too. So it's helpful for us as adults as well as for our kids to make sure that they know what's coming next. Kids feel secure when they can predict what's going to happen next. When children aren't sure what's going on or what the expectation are, that's very unsettling. And so anything that we can do to help provide some structure, some parameters or expectations around what's occurring, whether it's part of the daily routine or even the weekly routine, that is very helpful for kids. I would also argue, so when I talk about working from home, I kind of broke it down into how you approach it from before the workday, during the workday, and after the workday. But I would argue that these two pieces, the communication and the planning, really can be used across those different dimensions that I'm going to share about in just the next couple of minutes. Okay, so before the workday, there's several things that you can do that I think can help make your workday a little bit more effective and manageable. So the first would be to create a consistent routine. Now that routine can be for you, it can also be for your kids, but just having a routine. So for example, I will share with you that our family routine is that I wake up early in the morning. We have family breakfast. We have most of our meals together now as a family. It's a great part with that communication and that sense of knowing what's coming next. And it's always the same for the work week, where I work first thing in the morning, then my husband and I switch, he works, we have family lunch, and then we switch again. My husband works typically in the house. I have a few hours in our office where it's quiet. I'm not worrying about kids, and then we switch again. So our kids know the routine. We know the routine. That's really helpful. Same goes with designating an office space or office hours. So like having specific hours that you work and people are aware of it, as well as an office space that you work. Now, I don't know what everyone else does, but I know I can share with you, because of having only one home office, multiple responsibilities between the two of us, that it's been really helpful. I have a work bag that travels with me. So I have a work bag that has my calendar in it. I use it to carry my computer materials, all those sorts. So I have them easily accessible at my fingertips if I need to get them. It's really important too here to share your plan with others, so like individuals who need to know those things. So your significant other or your kids know what your schedule is, so that they're kind of prepared for it. And then also you want to be a little bit flexible. So, it's good to have structure with some flexibility in place. So, if something were to happen or pop up, you're like, okay, well, we're going to be able to figure this out and go from there. The final piece here before your workday is to set clear work expectations with both your family members and coworkers. So, it might be something where you sit down and you tell your children, like, hey, these are the hours that I'm going to be doing X, Y, or Z, and I need to have X, Y, or Z. And you're allowed to have those conversations with your kids and set those expectations. I mean, of course, you want to make sure that it's developmentally appropriate. And by that, I mean, I would not be leaving my 2-year-old alone unattended with our arts and crafts supplies for 2 hours. That would just be a disaster. My rooms would probably get painted funny colors. So that's like something to think about. So just like having those expectations, a little bit of flexibility, that really helps too. Now, during the workday, there's a couple things that I have found that are really helpful with regards to getting work done. So the first thing I always tell people is to follow the pre-MEC principle. So this principle is the idea of whatever you don't like to do, you do it first, right? It doesn't sound like, I don't feel like it's always intuitive, but like whatever you don't want to do, you do it first. I think Mark Twain said, eat the frog first. And so what you want to do is, like, if there's something that you really don't like about your job, or it's just harder to do that task first, and then focus on other things that you would perhaps rather do. Also, turn off notifications and distractions. So that might be turning off your notifications on your phone, or if you're using some sort of wearable technology, turning it off so you can really focus. I also encourage people to map out their top 3. And what I mean by top 3 is those are the top 3 tasks that you have to get done for the day. That will be the things that most drive the needle forward. So like moving that needle to be successful. So your top 3 tasks might be finishing a report for your job, perhaps attending a specific meeting, whatever those are, identify those top 3 and then focus on getting those top 3 tasks taken off the day. Another piece here with the workday that's really helpful is being intentional. So you want to take scheduled short breaks. No longer are we having to do our commutes. No longer are we, maybe perhaps you're not having to get dressed up for the day. Maybe you're able to be a little bit more casual. So taking some opportunities for breaks to, get outside, to go for a walk. Like I know somebody shared walking their dog, practicing maybe 10 minutes of yoga, or doing a 10-minute meditation from Calm or Headspace or another app. All good ways to just kind of remove yourself from your workspace for just a little bit and then be able to come back and refocus. Something also here too that I think is really helpful is we don't have those, what I used to call waterside or water cooler chats. There's no coffee breaks. I mean, there's still, of course, still coffee, but you're not having those, what I call organic conversations in the office anymore. So this is where having things that you're able to schedule that don't really have an agenda are worthwhile. So I know someone shared in the chat that they have Zoom dinners with friends. Like, I think that's awesome. You can do similar things with work. I think you want to make sure you balance out those activities so that you don't feel overloaded with the Zooms or the webinars that you're participating in, but like having some of those built into your workday are really nice. Personally, I can share from experience that our team has been having virtual happy hours on Fridays for just an hour, and it's been really fun, and it's actually something I look forward to. I know my team members look forward to. And do we talk about some stuff related to work? Yes, absolutely. But we also talk about a lot of friend stuff, and it's been nice because our team is spread out across the United States, and there's people I've known for 5 years that I didn't really know as much about them personally, and I know a lot more now, and it just helps with feeling that sense of connections. Okay, so then the next thing too here, so that was during the workday. The next one I'm going to share with you is after the workday. So after the workday, this is like the whole idea here is like we're shifting gears and changing our minds, trying to shift our mindsets a little bit. So one of the things here that we want to think about is take a minute to reflect on how the day went. So just breathe. Take a minute to like have that shift from work mode to home mode. The second thing here that's really helpful as the workday comes to an end is to remove yourself or your equipment from your work from home area. So like I shared, I have a bag. That bag, everything goes into the bag and it gets put away for the rest of the evening. Or some instances I'm shutting the doors to the office. I'm not going back in the office. Something that can be really helpful too is being able to debrief. So basically, if you think about like being able to vent to somebody about what went well or what maybe didn't go well or what was really frustrating with your job. So having somebody that you can debrief with about your job and what's going on can be really helpful. This might be your partner, a friend, or a family member, somebody who you trust who will just listen and let you share, and then perhaps you'll do the same for that person. This is probably one of my favorite tips I give people, and that is have something to look forward to at the end of the day. So have something fun that you're genuinely excited about, whether it is, I shared, I live in Florida. So in Florida, it's been like in the upper 80s or low 90s, I think, for quite a while. So like one of the things I look forward to doing with my family some afternoons is like we go swimming, or we play outside, or we go for bike rides, or we do a craft project, or some days we just watch a movie, so something that to look forward to is always really nice. Somebody shared that they like to play Minecraft with their husband once the kids are in bed. I think that's cool. Having something exciting. We just started watching some show on Netflix, and I don't even know what it's called, but it's mindless entertainment. And it's fun to have a show to watch, and be able to do that. I think most importantly too, is when it comes to working from home, the line can get very blurry of what's work and what's home, your personal life. And so giving yourself permission to disconnect. People know how hard you work, and you have permission to disconnect, to like put it away and not worry about it all right then and there. So that I think is probably one of the hardest things when you start working from home is like, you can always check an email or send a message or listen to a voicemail, but you have permission to not always be on for work because it's exhausting. You need to be able to recharge those batteries. Now, the thing here too is I will share is that, you know, it's all good. Like we talk about what we should do. However, it's one thing to be like setting our intention. So I'm going to take it a step further. So in your positive parenting pandemic action plan, I've included some templates, and these are some screenshots of what they look like that you can use for your daily plan. So you can map out your schedule. For me, I found it to be really effective to plan out my schedule at the end of the previous workday. This gives me a sense of purpose for what I will accomplish tomorrow. And it also is a nice reminder of what I've accomplished for the day. You can also set weekly expectations. Now, these can all be used not only with yourself as an adult, as a working parent, but they can also be used with your kids. So maybe there's some expectations that they have for school or for their family responsibilities, whatever they may be that they can do here. Do you have a I don't know if I have a survey. What do you mean by Marielle? I don't know what you mean by a survey. Okay, so I'm curious about this. So I'm curious, if you're working from home, what has been one of your, let's crowdsource again. What has been one of your work from home hacks that's been helpful for you? So in the chat box, I'm going to encourage you for the next minute to share what are some work from home hacks that you have used that have helped with perhaps saving your sanity, or maybe stuff that you've done that's been helpful with your kids. So work from home ideas and strategies that you've started to use that have just been helpful for you. Zoning out at dinners. Be consistent. 1 minute. Watching Golden Girls. Oh my God, love it. Zoning out after dinner with a movie. Totally get it. Instead of working upstairs in office, I moved laptop to the kitchen so my kids see me and that calms them. Allison, you're just like me. I feel like most of my work gets done at my kitchen counter with my kids, like 1 foot away from me. They're not sitting on my lap. Taking a break and going for a walk. They entertain themselves and not need my help. Practicing music for fun, not for work. I'm a music teacher. I love it, but that sounds like a nice self-care practice. I love this from Lori Kay. Making sure you tell your partner when you're really having a bad day or you are really struggling. Couldn't agree more with that. That communication piece is so important to be supported. About 20 seconds. Orange Theory and free online yoga classes. Yes, I love that. I go over my schedule with my son so he knows what I need to do. We both work together at the table. That's very cool. And it sets a great amount, that's a great way to like provide an example of how you do your work. I love it. Right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one I see here. I use Alexa to tell the kids their weekly meeting reminders. Oh my gosh, that's so smart. It's hard to keep track of everybody's schedules. Who's got meetings, who doesn't, all the Zoom calls, all the meetings. Oh, I'm so ready for that to be over. Okay, so in your positive pandemic parenting action plan, we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna talk about some parenting quick tips. So this is really where my passion lies with what I do as a parent and the stuff that I'm going to be sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and share this stuff with you now. So you can go ahead and take some notes here. One of the things I oftentimes will tell people about that I think about that's really helpful is I think about Maslow and or excuse me, not Maslow, that's something else. So you can tell I'm a huge psychology dork. I've studied a lot of psychology in my tenure in my professional career, but who I'm really meaning to talk about, I apologize, I definitely need another cup of coffee, is Bowlby. So this researcher named Bowlby, he studied monkeys. And he had I believe she was a student, her name was Mary Ainsworth, studied these monkeys. And one of the things that they did with the monkeys, you know, this was back in not in this century, it was, you know, quite a while ago in psychology, but something that they oftentimes will talk about in Psychology 101, where they would have the monkeys would be separated from their moms. They were orphan monkeys. And they put the monkeys in crates or cages, which, you know, that's what they did. And one of the things that they did is they put a metal monkey that had a bottle on it with a nipple that would provide the sustenance for the monkey, but then they also put a soft plush monkey in the cage as well. One of the things that they noticed about monkeys in this research that's fascinating is these baby orphan monkeys would go to the metal monkey to get the sustenance that they needed. But then if something happened, something was scary, they were worried, they would automatically go to the plush soft monkey and cling to it. So I just can't help but think about this in these times right now, because our kids are kind of like the monkeys. And I'm not saying that to me sounds silly or ugly. It's really the idea of our kids are under so much stress right now, and they're looking for a safe space, just like these monkeys were when they would cling to those plush monkeys that were reminiscent of their moms. So during times of change like these, our children are looking for security. They want to know, will you keep me safe? Am I going to be okay? And as working parents, and just parents in general, we have this ability to make those individuals, those kids, feel safe. So this is where hugs, snuggles, playing, listening, reading books, all those things go a long way right now. Making sure that your children have a safe home, healthy meals, and secure attachments. They feel loved and connected with their parents and other important adults in their life is so important right now. Y'all, because I'm from Florida, I had to include a picture of the beach, right? So when it comes to parenting and working with children, we just need to lay that foundation for success. So there's really two key pieces here that I oftentimes will tell people. The first is setting the stage for success. This means that all individuals are calm and in the right state of mind for learning. Basic needs like having enough to eat, not being overtired or distracted comes into play. Second, we want to look for those teachable moments. Those are moments when kids or students are ready to learn, and we as adults are ready to teach and model. Spoiler alert, when a child is having a temper tantrum, that's not a teachable moment yet, but when that child calms down and you were calm as well, because it's I'll tell you as a parent, it's hard when they're upset. When they are calm after the temper tantrum has ended, that's a great teachable moment to talk about it. Most often when kids have temper tantrums like that, they're not having them, and you ask them about their feelings about it. You say, well, how do you feel about this? What do you think? They don't like it. They don't feel good. So, and it's an opportunity for you as a parent to kind of talk through those pieces with them. So in addition to being a parenting coach and a licensed school psychologist and a blogger, I definitely stay busy. I am also a certified positive discipline educator. And what that means is I am trained in this framework that you see here to help with working with children and their families and their parents with regards to how I approach discipline. So with positive discipline, there are these 5 principles that we believe. So the first is, when our parenting practices, we are kind and firm at the same time. So we're respectful of our kids. We're also encouraging of them. We're not going to use disparaging remarks. We're also help kids feel a sense of belonging and significance. So we want to connect with them. The whole idea, I can't remember the author, I think it's Siegel, says connection before correction. The whole idea is when we're connected, we're able to help a child. Another piece here with positive discipline is it is effective in the long term. So I wrote an article a few months ago or a while back on my blog called Spanking Sucks. And I shared a bunch of research about why I think spanking sucks, or just using punitive parenting practices like that. So here's the thing, when we use something like spanking, yelling, raising our voices, time out even to a certain extent, it might stop a behavior in its tracks right then and there, but it's not going to teach children how we want them to behave. Now, I'm not saying that children shouldn't be disciplined, because really the whole heart and the meaning behind the word discipline, it comes from the word to teach, I think in Latin. So there's other strategies that can be used, including a positive timeout that would be helpful or effective with regards to managing some of that misbehavior when kids act out. Another piece of positive discipline is that it teaches valuable social skills and life skills that build good character. And what I really love about positive discipline, this is probably why I use it so much, or why I use it as part of my practice, is it invites children to discover how capable they are. And it's all about problem solving. It's focused on finding solutions, so that if we say, hey, I didn't do this really well, but then what it'll do is it'll share with you, you can say, okay, how can we come up with some solutions or some strategies that would help? Okay. All right, so let's get into these quick tips here. So the first quick tip I'm going to share with you is one-on-one time. So really here, you want to set aside time each day to spend maybe 10 to 20 minutes with each of your children, if you can. And you can have it at the same time each day so that your child or teenager knows to look forward to it. And this is about letting them, the kiddo, guide the activity. So by letting them pick the activity, you're allowing them to make more choices and have control of what you do. This is where, as a parent, we turn off our distractions. This means, no smartphones, no TV, no tablets for both you and your child. We really want to remember here, we're practicing what we preach, right? Attention is very reinforcing for kids. Here are some fun ideas you can use with little kiddos, like a baby or a toddler. So you can sing songs, stack blocks, look at picture books and read, copy their facial expressions, narrate what they're doing. Here are some ideas for older kiddos, like school-age children. You might do things like read a book, do an arts and crafts project, let them help with a cooking project. Maybe you sing or dance, build with Legos, make a chore into a fun game, listen to music, play with Play-Doh. And then for teenagers, you might do something like talk about something that they really like. Maybe it's sports, movies, music, celebs, video games, their friends. Maybe you could let them plan the meal and cook together, go for a walk, take a virtual class together, yoga class. Somebody shared for self-care, they like to do Zumba. Maybe you do Zumba together if you both like that. The whole goal here is that you're providing your child with undivided attention and you're having fun together. Plus, it can be a really great stress reliever for both you and your child. And it can even maybe be the thing that you look forward to each day when you finish up your workday. The next thing here we want to think about is we want to keep it positive. And so when I think about this, one of the things I'm reminded of is when I was in graduate school. So I co-facilitated behavioral parent training classes for 2 years and did my thesis on parenting stress in this population. So if you can't tell, I'm a huge dork in the sense that I've been studying this and researching this and working within this realm for a very long time. And I love it. One of the things that we taught was the power of catch them being good and using the ratio of 1 negative interaction to 5 positive interactions to maintain behavior. So to change behavior, we really wanted to have 1 negative interaction to 3 positive interactions. So what this means is we're reframing what we say to our kids. So here's an example. So instead of saying, don't run in the house, you could say, we use walking feet in the house. When you observe the behavior occurring, you can provide reinforcement by saying something like, wow, I noticed that you were walking inside. You have quiet feet. Using things like no, don't, or stop doesn't teach our kids what we want them to do. By explicitly saying things like, we use our inside voice in the house, we are telling them what we want them to do. This is way more effective than saying, don't yell, stop screaming. The kid might think, okay. Then is singing okay? Is using a robot voice okay at a level 10? Like things like that. Well, if we haven't told them exactly what we want them to do, they may not know. And what does, they're wondering to themselves, what does my parent want from me right now? So shouting, yelling oftentimes are ineffective as well in the long term, and they're not really a solution. And when it comes to these interactions, it can be really helpful to get down on your child's level and use a calm voice. If you find yourself feeling frustrated and your kids are driving you crazy, which trust me, I know it happens, this is a really good indicator that you might need to take a break. Having a schedule, like we've talked about this already, but having a schedule is both good for us as working parents as well as our kids, and it helps with that predictability piece throughout the day. Having that consistency with a little flexibility are key here, and you can create that schedule with some times for both structured activities as well as time for free time. And you can, with older kiddos, especially, when you get into elementary school, you can help include them in that decision-making process and include them in that conversation and say, well, what do you think you'd like to do right now? Exercise is a really great stress reliever, and it can be a good thing to incorporate each day with your kids as well. So that might be something you put in your schedule. Now, we try our best to be positive, right? I love being able to catch them being good. It's such a great way to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see. But sometimes kids just misbehave, and no one's perfect, right? I mean, I endeavor to keep it real with y'all. In our house, there has been lots of misbehavior and behavior in general that drives both myself and my partner absolutely nuts. However, we've learned how to use appropriate methods that help with our responses to misbehavior. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, harsh discipline practices are ineffective and should not be used with kids. Same thing is reiterated with positive discipline. So, I shared earlier, I wrote the article about spanking and how it sucks. It just temporarily alleviates the behavior, but it's not, that's driving us nuts as parents, but it doesn't teach our kids what we want them to do. And it actually hurts the parent-child relationship. It doesn't teach the child appropriate skills that are going to help them with managing their emotions, problem solving, or how to engage in appropriate pro-social skills. Here are some ways that we can help though. So first is like when a child's misbehaving, we can redirect before the behavior escalates. Now, here's something that I have learned with coaching with families is that oftentimes with behavior, it's kind of like a bell curve. And when kids are trying to get your attention, it might start off like mom, my kids, mom. And it's not, when they don't get any sort of feedback, that behavior escalates or increases. So oftentimes if we can catch them before that behavior escalates to understand what they need, whether it's like, mommy needs a minute, I will be with you in just 1 minute, or hold your hand while you wait for me, or whatever, or, whatever it might be, mommy is very helpful. The other thing here that's really important too is when kids misbehave, we take that moment to pause and give yourself permission to take that mini break internally. It's kind of like when we're talking about the tiger and the perspective is it can be really easy to just snap and respond immediately, like off the cuff, using what in our family we call it the red brain versus the green brain, which we can talk about another time. But when you take that mini break for yourself, whether it's 10 seconds or 60 seconds or 2 minutes, and breathe, you are able to kind of take a deep breath, breathe slowly, reflect on what's happening, and then respond. That's going to be really helpful for managing how we respond to our kids' behavior. Also, we want to determine what consequences to use with our children that make the most sense and that are developmentally appropriate. So you can allow your child an opportunity also to change their behavior. So if you've misbehaved, if a child's misbehaved, I always like to try and give them an opportunity to try again. And then, there might be some assistance that you need to provide as a parent to help them with learning that behavior. In these moments, it's so important to stay calm and follow through with what we say. One of my favorite quotes from Positive Discipline is from Dr. Jane Nelson. She's one of the founders of this framework. And it's, where do we ever get the crazy idea that in order to make children do better, first we have to make them feel worse? I can tell you that I'm not perfect. I am very intentional when I say I'm a parent coach. I'm not a parenting expert. I don't believe in, as much as I've read, as much research as I've done, what I've dedicated myself to as a professional, I would never call myself a parenting expert because every child is different. Every family is different. But I am a coach, which means I will guide and I can be a guide, a coach, and a cheerleader for you as a family. Every time that I have lost my temper, doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, especially with COVID-19. I oftentimes feel worse. I feel, it makes me feel like a bad mom, and it doesn't make my kids feel really good. And it makes them wonder if they're okay, if mommy's okay, and they're afraid to ask mommy something. So when we think about that within the context of our behavior and how we respond to our kids, I think it's really important to give ourselves, again, permission to take that moment to take a break. But if it does happen when your kid's misbehaving and you want to pull your hair out, and maybe perhaps you lose your temper or you raise your voice, that's what happens with, I will raise my voice sometimes. When the moment is calmed and you feel like you've calmed down as well, that is a great opportunity to apologize and say, hey, mommy had a hard time controlling her temper, but I know you can help me and I can do better next time. And inviting them in that process. It's really fun. In our family, we have red brain, yellow brain, and green brain. So this is just the idea of looking at basically how we're regulating our behavior. And at the end of the night, when we have our good night routine, bedtime routine, my son will tell me, mommy, I think today you were a green brain today. And we'll talk about why I was a green brain. Or we'll talk about, he said, mommy, I had a little bit of a yellow brain today. And we'll talk about why and how we're going to what we're going to do the next day. So it's a great opportunity for learning and to invite our children into what it's like to be a parent and to give ourselves permission to not be perfect. The next piece here as a quick tip is we want to make sure that we keep calm and manage stress. So taking care of ourselves with all those different ideas we talked about earlier with regards to self-care can be really helpful. Using things like Headspace or the Calm app, like gratitude, you're welcome to use those. Breathing, different breathing techniques, whatever it is to help you stay calm and manage stress is really helpful. And then finally here with regards to talking about COVID-19, at the beginning of the webinar, we talked about the importance of reassuring our children. Kids pick up on our conversations between adults and whether it is something at the dinner table or overhearing a conversation that's been had on the phone. Personally, my 5-year-old refers to COVID-19 as the virus and knows that we can't do certain things right now because of the virus. I'm doing like air quotes like you can see me. But it is the virus in our family. So this is a great time to be open with our children and let them ask questions. Let them kind of lead that conversation with the questions that they ask. Listen to their thoughts and worries. Reassure them that they're safe with you, that you're doing what you can to keep them safe. Practicing, healthy hygiene routine practices, and be supportive of them. The other thing too here is you can give yourself permission to not have all the answers. Right? So it's okay if you know a lot, that's great, but if you don't know all the answers, that's okay. The other thing too here that I think that's really cool is to look for and share stories about the heroes amidst us with everything that's going on right now. I can't help but think about the teachers. I know there's a couple of teachers on this call right now who have quickly and successfully acclimated to distance learning, or healthcare professionals who are reporting for their shifts each day at the hospital, and grocery store employees who stock the shelves so that we have the supplies that we need. And these are just only a few examples of people, but there are many, many more. So looking for those people who are the heroes can be really helpful. My gosh, we have talked a lot, and I know our time is coming to an end. So there's a couple of slides here I'm going to share with you as we kind of come to the end here. And I'm going to, let's see, turn my camera on. There it goes, perfect. Okay, and so let's see, where's the chat box? Okay, so we are coming to the close of the webinar. We've talked a lot about different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to get out your action plan. And I want you to think about some things. So we've talked about a bunch of different strategies now. So in our action plan, there's another page, and there's a couple things that we can ask ourselves. So one is, what is one thing I can do right now to take care of myself? What positive parenting practices will help my children right now? What are 2 to 3 strategies that I can use to fulfill my work obligations? So just thinking about the different things that we've talked about, what is something that you can hold yourself accountable for, that you can do right now, one small thing for each of these areas, that make life just a little bit easier. What time is it? The other thing too, I will say is thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. Let's see if I can close this out. I'm going to close out of this real quick. If you would like to share one of your strategies that you think you would like to start implementing, please feel free to type it into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and pull it in. Plan something fun to look forward to each day. I like the idea of going over the day during the bedtime. So I think you should be able to see my screen now. I'm going to share this with you briefly. You can see the chat. This is my website. I'd love to have you come join. You're welcome to follow along. There's all kinds of stuff you can grab here. I'm on social media as well. I'm on like Revive. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You're welcome to follow along. And I'm happy to answer questions if that's okay with Morgan. If that's okay with you, I can answer a couple of questions. I see somebody typed in family fruit. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Family fruit eating time. I love that. That's very cool. What was it? Green, yellow, and red brain. Okay. Showed you my slides. So I'm going to go ahead right now and go to the tiger. Somebody wanted to see the tiger again. This tiger.
Yeah, Amy, that would be great if you could do that.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
I'm going to stand up, you guys. I'm going to apologize. You're going to probably see my shorts in just a second. My iWatch is beeping at me that I'm supposed to stand right now, which is going to drive me nuts. Okay, so I have the screen pulled up and it's showing the tiger. So this is what the tiger looks like because I know somebody wanted to see it. So let's talk about red, yellow, and green brain. So basically what that is when we think about the brain, I'm going to laugh, you're going to laugh. So this part of my brain right here is the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is like where all of your, what we call in psychology, metacognition. But basically that's like your problem solving, like how you think about thinking. So that's the idea where you are presented with a problem or a task and it's like, okay, I have this problem. How am I going to solve it? So this is where you use the front part of your brain. And then yellow brain is a little bit more back here. So you're a little bit further removed in your thinking. So you're not as calm and using some of those strategies you have up in the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. Red brain is the back of the brain. So that's like we call it the hind brain. But that's where like where the amygdala is in the brain stem. And that's what they call like your reptilian brain. Whoopsies. Your reptilian brain. So remember how when we talked about flight, fright, or freeze, that's where you're not really thinking about what you're doing and you're reacting. So with the idea of red brain, yellow brain, and green brain, it's a very concrete way of talking to your kiddos in a way that helps them put their feelings into words. So for example, when my son and I talk and we say we're in green brain, that means we're oftentimes in a calm state. We might feel frustrated, but we are in a calm state of mind and we can kind of, he doesn't say it like this, but I say it like this as an adult, is like we can rationalize through whatever the problem is that we're presented with, okay? And oftentimes when we're in the green brain, we can do that ourselves unassisted. Yellow brain, as we move back, we're gonna need a little bit of help. We're starting to feel really frustrated. We might need our parents or a trusted adult or an older sibling perhaps to help remind us of what we need to do. So, like a strategy I use when I work with kids is stop and think. Like stop what I'm doing, think about my choices. What are my options? Let's pick the best option. That's a strategy I use with kids. They might be in that yellow brain. Red brain, like I said, is that reptilian brain where there's no like thinking. That's like when you think about the meltdowns, the temper tantrums, the, oh my gosh, like what the heck, like all those things go on. And it's like you're reacting without really considering any of the consequences. You're not problem solving. You're not trying to fix what's going on. Like you're just reacting. And oftentimes when you're in red brain, you're not thinking clearly. It's like we said with a flight, fright, or freeze, you're just reacting and not getting there. So this is a really cool concept to use with kids because it's it's a great visual concept because they can like see it. Like they're like, oh yeah, my green brain, I'm like calm. Can I come up with a solution? Here's my problem. Here's my possible responses to the problems. Okay, I can pick a solution. If this solution doesn't work, I can try another one. So like they're able to like help, you're able to help them. And it's like the whole idea of those teachable moments. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, well, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Like I shared, I am Amy Patnode. This is my blog, Psych to Parent. I encourage you, I'd love to have you come check it out. Join my community. Follow me I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm there. Yes. Yes, I believe it is based on the zones of regulation approach. Yes. Somebody asked, is green, yellow, red brain based on the zones of regulation? I believe, yes, it is. All right. All right. I think that's it. I think that's it for me. All right.
Thank you, Amy. We have tons of people writing in to say thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, they just keep coming in. They loved it.
Oh, good. Yay, we did it.
Thanks. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and we will be back again next week with another guest, special education teacher.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if all of you want to join again, we'll be here. And yeah, Amy, I'm sure you shared information about how to get in touch with you after the webinar if parents want to do that too.
Awesome. Good.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Stay safe, everybody.